This is a News 10 special report.
Small fires are burning tonight in the streets of East Lansing. Hundreds of students are participating in a post-game disturbance, lighting fires, throwing bottles at police, refusing to disband. Hello again, everyone. I'm Phil Dawson. We're continuing our coverage of the problems in East Lansing following the Michigan State basketball team's loss to Duke this evening. Hundreds of police officers in riot gear equipped with tear gas are trying to get that situation under control. There was tear gas used to break up the crowds, but while that tactic did succeed in moving people, the uprisings erupted again in other locations. We know of at least one student under arrest and at least one student injured in this disturbance. A particular problem area is Cedar Village, where a car was lit on fire. News 10's Jam Sardar is live now with us near Bailey Street, where we understand there is a lot of action. Jam, what's the situation there?
Bill, all I can say is I'd hate to see what happened if MSU had won tonight. Well, we are standing just off Grand River between Division and Bailey Streets, and you can see that there's still a huge fire, hundreds, if not 1,000 people lining the street here. You can see some notable restaurants here along Grand River, but I can tell you the situation just around the corner on Bailey is even worse. The fire is even bigger, there are even more people, and it is a situation that's going a whole 2 or 3 blocks. We walked up and down Grand River and Bailey Street just a while ago, trying to be very careful because the camera's attracting a lot of attention. But what we saw is just amazing. Just smoke everywhere, people lighting anything they can on fire. They're throwing bottles, they're uprooting trees. The whole pavement of Bailey Street is just shattered glass. And I have to tell you, that's close to where I live. I haven't lived in this community very long, but you hate to see something like this happen anywhere, and especially here in East Lansing. We talked to several students who told us that they're ashamed of what's going on, but obviously there are many more students, as you can see here, who are willing, ready, and able to participate in this. In fact, while we were talking to one of the students who is about to graduate and didn't want to see her school's reputation tarnished like this, somebody tried to pick a fight with her, telling her if she didn't like what she was seeing, that she could leave and graduate. So that gives you an idea of the mindset of some of the people that we're talking about and the mob mentality that's going on. As I said, the situation looks quite dire on Grand River here, on Bailey Street. We walked a little ways up and down Grand River and Bailey. We've seen police cars in the distance, but I'm no expert on police tactics, but we did not see any police officers or firefighters trying to put down that disturbance on Bailey Street or here on Grand River. So it remains to be seen exactly if, when, and how the police and fire departments are going to handle this situation. Again, we don't know how long it's going to take, but it doesn't show any signs of dying down anytime soon. What you're seeing now, if we're looking at the live picture, is people who are setting other things on fire. And I guess what police and firefighters are really afraid of is people who are using the bonfires to light their own torches to go and set other things on fire. That's one of the high priority concerns right now. Phil, I know you mentioned injuries. We have heard reports of injuries resulting from fights, resulting from fires. There was one person in some video that we had earlier that was kind of surfing from the top of a street sign. He apparently took a dive from that street sign and hurt himself, although we don't know how seriously. Several witnesses that we talked to said that his injuries did appear substantial. Again, no arrests, no reports of arrests, a number of arrests or injuries at this point. Obviously, we'd love to talk to the police and firefighters, but they've kind of got their hands full, and we're trying not to bug them right now. So that's all the information we have at this point. Have to say it's a sad commentary on not just the city of East Lansing, but any city that wins or loses a championship, that people have to resort to partying and celebrating like this and destroying the community that they're here and supposedly know and love.
Well, Jan,
yep.
You seem to be in an excellent position there to have conversations with the students, and you mentioned that what might have happened had Michigan State won their game tonight. This isn't a victory celebration. What is the point? Has anyone said why? Why this disruption?
I don't know that we weren't able to talk to really the people that seem to be really interested in causing all the destruction and setting all the fires. What I can tell you, and this won't come as a surprise to many people, is that alcohol plays a huge role in these decisions, because obviously when you're under the influence of alcohol, your judgment is not as good. people aren't thinking straight. We had several people accost us here with beer cans. All those bottles, you guessed it, they're beer bottles. So I'm guessing alcohol has a lot to do with the celebration. But like you said, and like several people have said, you'd hate to see what happened if MSU won. I have to add, Michigan State University did its best to try and avoid situations like this. As you know, there have been several riots in the last year now, and one just the other week. They got Coach Izzo, they got the hockey coach, Coach Mason, to try and talk to students and to tell them, you know, this just isn't the way to celebrate. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like many students have paid heed to those warnings. So we will continue to cover this story, and we will bring you more news and information as it develops. We're doing our best to talk to the police. As I said, they've got their hands full right now, and I can't say I blame them.
Mention a large police presence. I'm sure that police have a tactical plan to handle this situation. Do they seem to be assembling, forming a group that will move on this demonstration, or are they just kind of standing by and just trying to keep it under control?
Well, Phil, we only had a precious few minutes to look around from the time we were just at MSU a half hour ago until we had checked out Bailey Street and Grand River now. I didn't see much of a police presence at all, but I didn't have much of a chance to look around. I'm not an expert in police tactics. What I've seen from last weekend and what I'm understanding is happening now is that police seem to let students kind of burn off some steam and celebrate to a certain point. But then there comes a point, just as you said, Phil, when the police assemble, they get together, they move in, and they do whatever they need to do to disperse the crowd, to put out the fires, to use tear gas. So on Bailey and Grand River, we haven't seen any police action just yet. And while I can't say it's imminent, I think it's fair to say that it's expected.
Okay, Jan, we're going to let you go and do your work gathering information, gathering video of the situation there in East Lansing. We do know that there's been at least one arrest, at least one injury, and the fires, as you've just seen, continue to burn there in the streets. Police, we don't know what their plan is, but there are a number of police officers there in riot gear. We know that tear gas has been fired into the crowd, but people have moved but have not dispersed. We will continue our coverage as more information becomes available. Until then, I'm Phil Dawson. We'll see you in a few minutes.
How did you get into pimping?
Hazing does.
News 10, coverage you can count on.
The Out-of-Towners, April 2nd at the AMC Meridian Theaters.
This is a News 10 special report.
Students in East Lansing add a car to their bonfire near the Cedar Village apartment complex. It's one of many fires, a sample of the property damage and out-of-control behavior still disturbing the peace in East Lansing tonight. Hello again, everyone. I'm Phil Dawson. This disturbance in East Lansing began after the Michigan State lost to Duke in tonight's Final Four basketball game. Now, several hours later, there are still large crowds of people refusing to disperse. There are still fires burning. Police, protected with riot gear, have used tear gas on the crowds. But while it does work to move people for a time, they reform again and continue to ignore the police orders to disband. There are an unknown number of injuries, an unknown number of arrests, but surely many of both. Police have been pelted with beer bottles. No reports so far of any injuries to officers. There are a large number of police officers from various police agencies in mid-Michigan in the area to try and control this unruly crowd, but it is a situation that is still out of control. We have crews out there in the middle of this disturbance, gathering information, gathering pictures, talking to people who are involved in this. One thing that is a little bit difficult to understand for the reporters on the scene is what is the point, since Michigan State was defeated tonight by Duke. This surely can't be considered a celebration. Maybe there is no rationale. The use of alcohol is very prevalent here in this group and certainly is a contributing factor. There have been pleas for peace and quiet. There have been pleas from many authorities, administrators, athletes for this group to disband, to desist, all of which have been ignored so far. NBC 10 is continuing our coverage here of the disturbance in East Lansing. We have crews out there, as I mentioned. They're getting information. We'll get back to you. We understand that the police are about to make a maneuver, use a tactic. We don't know exactly what it is, but we have people standing by to see how effective it is, and we'll bring you the results as they become available. Until then, We'll see you later.
You luck, Howard.
You said the last time, unless you are a liar. Now you tell me the truth.
This is a News 10 special report.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Phil Dawson. There are developments now in East Lansing where hundreds and hundreds of students have been out in the streets since the end of the Michigan State Duke basketball game this evening, lighting fires, burning cars, damaging property, refusing to disperse, ignoring the police commands. We now know that the police are assembled at the corner of Grand River and Bailey. That's where we also have Jam Sardar standing. Well, Jam Sardar is there, but he has been overwhelmed by a cloud of tear gas. We want to go to Jam Sardar and hear what he has to say about this police operation that is underway to get this band of students, this group that refuses to leave, that refuses to stop their civil disobedience. This police are now assembled in riot gear. They're firing tear gas, trying to get the group to move. This tactic has been used already tonight with limited success. The students would move from one location to another, but now there's a greater force of police. More tear gas is being exploded, and it seems to be having the desired effect. We're not seeing too many students left, but we see lots of police, although there is one little small fire we can see in our video. There have been large fires, even cars burning on fire tonight. An unknown number of arrests, an unknown number of injuries, but some of both are reported. The property damage is not known yet, but there have been reports of some structures that have been damaged, vehicles damaged. There are reports of students who have been burned. All of this follows the Michigan State loss to Duke tonight in the Final Four basketball game in St. Petersburg, Florida. The university was prepared to respond to a victory celebration. It wasn't known what would happen when Michigan State lost, but it seems as if, although there is nothing to celebrate, the students were not deterred, were not discouraged by the defeat, and they still came out in great numbers into the streets and started fires and refused to disband at the order of police. The police are now moving against the group with tear gas and large numbers of officers in riot gear. The effectiveness of this tactic is not yet known, but it does seem to be moving the crowd. Now, whether they will reform at other locations, we cannot tell. We cannot tell if there are enough police officers there to prevent that from happening. We will get into contact with Jam Sardar and our crew, both of which have tearing eyes, have difficulty breathing because they also were caught in the clouds of tear gas. We're going to give them a chance to recover, and we may have him now. Okay, let's go to Jam Sardar now. Jam, if you can speak to us, how are you recovering from, first of all, how are you recovering from the effects of that tear gas? Jam, are you okay? How is the tear gas? How are you recovering from the tear gas? Are you able to speak?
Yeah, Phil, boy, I got to tell you, that was my first taste of tear gas. I went to the University of Wisconsin, which is known for its kind of uprisings and sometimes riots. But police came down Grand River about 10 minutes ago and just lobbing canisters of tear gas, some just right in front of them, some way over our heads. And it dispersed the crowd in quite a hurry, let me tell you. It stings your eyes. It makes it hard to breathe. You start coughing. You start crying. Really quite an experience. And as you can see, if we can get a shot, if you were with us just a little while ago, you saw how crowded Grand River is, and there are not many people there now. If you can get that corner, the corner of Bailey and Grand River, there are quite a few number of police officers now. They came down Grand River from Collingwood and marched west towards Lansing, but they stopped and turned at Bailey because in case you've been following us, in case you haven't been following us, that is the scene of one of the biggest fires and one of the biggest crowds and where things were really out of hand. We showed you some video from Bailey Street earlier. So they turned their march down Bailey Street, and we've seen just huge clouds of smoke coming from Bailey Street. And we haven't been down there ourselves, but I'm assuming it's one of two things. It's the fire that's being put out, and it was quite a huge fire spanning practically the whole street, or more tear gas that's being lobbed down that way. And we're hoping to get down Bailey Street just as soon as we can and find out exactly what that situation was.
Jam, when they used this tactic, this tear gas tactic in the past, the crowd would run from that location to another place and then start fires again. Does that seem to be happening now, or are you in a position where you can tell?
We're not really in a position where we can tell just yet. It happened just a few minutes ago. I'm guessing what police are hoping, though, is that this has really taken the wind out of them, so to speak. You know, there was that disruption over in Cedar Village, and then they moved to Grand River and Bailey Street. It's about 1:30. The rioting, as I said, started just after the game ended at about 10:30, and it's been going on for about 3 hours now. And that doesn't seem very long when you're just going and hanging out with friends, but when you've been setting fires and turning over cars and some of the really atrocious acts that we've seen before, you hope that that will be the last of what it is. But you know, we're keeping an eye out on, an ear out on police scanners, and you know, we're keeping an eye on things here ourselves. And you know, like police and the fire department, we're hoping that things don't flare up again. We talked to a sergeant, Ingham County Sheriff's Department, before. He updated us on the situation with arrests and injuries. There have been numerous arrests, although he didn't have a specific number, for people who were setting fires, for people that were disobeying police orders. And I don't know if you saw the video earlier of somebody who was kind of surfing atop a pole, a street sign pole. He did, as I mentioned before, fall off and suffer, I don't know how substantial injuries, but quite serious from what we've been hearing.
Of somebody putting a car into the bonfire. Now, is that an old piece of junk car, or is that just somebody's vehicle that happened to be parked there on the street?
Well, I'd hate to say it was a piece of junk, but it was, you know, someone's car, regardless of what kind of repair or condition it was in. And we're hearing the crowd just get a little out of... Phil, you wondered if the crowd was reassembling, and it looks like they might be reassembling just a little bit down Grand River here, and you can see where they're kind of faced off with police. Police are blocking off Bailey Street. You can see them ringing the Taco Bell, going all the way across the street to where you see that red neon sign there. And right across the street from them, you can see all those students there that are facing off with them now. You know, it's kind of been a tense situation all night. We talked to students earlier who are blaming this whole situation on police and say that police started this whole thing. Obviously, there's a lot of news and information and misinformation that we're going to sort out when this is all over. But as you can see, that's the situation right now. It looks like some students have regathered here on Grand River, but it looks like police are really focusing their efforts on Bailey Street now and doing their best to put out the fire, to save the homes. It's a historic neighborhood, Bailey Street, and obviously you've got some very nice homes that are both student and people who have lived in the area for a long time. You would think that an area that's so close to campus would be majority dominated by students, but it's not. There are quite a few residents there who have lived there for quite a long time. And in fact, in the Bailey neighborhood, in just a few weeks, the East Lansing Police is going to start sending undercover officers to help patrol parties and maintain peace and quiet and order in that neighborhood, because Bailey neighborhood residents, people who have lived there for a long time, have been concerned about some of the things that have been going on in that neighborhood. And that's an example of community policing and the East Lansing Police responding to a need that they see that the people are asking them for. So that's something that will be starting in a couple weeks, but obviously, you know, we can see signs of the Bailey neighborhood getting out of hand here, and maybe a glimpse into the minds of some of the people that live there and why they're requesting the help they're requesting, Phil.
Well, Jamie, you answered the question about the car very delicately. I wondered if perhaps it was a car that was no longer in service, that was beyond repair, that they had found to somehow add to their fire. Now, Jam, I see the people there on Grand River. Are the businesses open, particularly the bars? Are they still open throughout all of this? And I guess when the bars close, that would be a good development for the end of all of this disturbance.
Yeah, bar time comes around 2 o'clock here in Lansing and East Lansing area. There are not too many bars right around here. What we're seeing here is a Taco Bell. There's some restaurants. There's a couple of coffee shops, but there aren't too many bars that are situated in that area right there. Most of the bars are a few streets down, about 3 or 4 blocks down on MAC, on Abbott, and those are some of the streets that police had tried to close off earlier, at least to not let people park their cars along those roads there. But yeah, Phil, very important, 2 o'clock. If there are still a lot of people at the bars, although I suspect many of them were drawn out by what's been going on tonight, it could be a very dangerous time before things start to subside, because you're getting a lot of people who've been doing a lot of drinking, and you add them to the people who are already out here. That could be a very touchy situation if they haven't already left. But then around 2 o'clock, after they've had their fun, hopefully things will settle down, and hopefully, Phil, sooner than that.
Well, sometimes in the past, I remember last year, it was after the bars closed, that's when things really got started up again. I just wonder if it would be prudent to close those bars now, or if that's possible, since it doesn't seem to be that most of the problem is in the vicinity of the bars.
Well, I'm sure that's a big concern to the bar owners who, as you know, Phil, are really thinking about taking steps to try and cut down on binge drinking, on excessive drinking, on underage drinking. If I owned a bar and I saw all this going outside, and as you can see, I don't know if we got some shots earlier of the Taco Bell, which is right on the corner of Grand River and Bailey, and some of its windows had been smashed out. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised, quite frankly, if that happened to a lot of the other businesses up here on the Strip and some of the other bars. So it would seem to me, Phil, that that would be a prudent thing to do, to have the bars close early. But, of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's happened. As I said, those bars are 3 or 4 blocks down and really haven't been around where the center of attention has been lately, at least here on Grand River and Bailey Street.
Well, it seems that things are coming to an end there, at least for the moment, Jam. Would you concur with that?
At least in this immediate vicinity, Phil, but as you mentioned before, you know, these riots tend to be pretty mobile. There was one at Cedar Village. Police tear gas Cedar Village. They moved to Bailey and Grand River. Now they tear gas Bailey and Grand River, and perhaps students have moved somewhere else. Hopefully not. Hopefully people had their whiff of tear gas and are going home and calling it a night. But from what I've seen in this area, it seems to be over, but that's not to say that they haven't moved somewhere else to try and start things up again.
Well, unless circumstances warrant more coverage tonight, we're going to conclude our coverage of these disturbances in East Lansing, let you get your eyes washed out, get that tear gas off of your face.
It's quite an experience, Phil. I'm not going to forget that.
And go and collect more information, more video. And we'll have complete coverage of all that's happened tonight, all that's happened early this morning, tomorrow night on News 10. Until then, I'm Phil Dawson. Have a good evening.